What's the good word, y'all? DKB here. So news has been dropping all morning. It's been absolutely crazy. So prior to the press conference, we get the reports from Rich Samini that the rest of the New York Jets locker room's been informed Zach Wilson will not be starting versus the Bears about 11:30 or 8:30 at least my time. We finally get the press conference. We get a bunch of information from Saleh. So with the headline news, Zach Wilson only will not only will he not be starting, he won't even be active on game day, at least for this Bears game. Mike White is going to be the starter, at least moving forward for the foreseeable future. Joe Flacco is going to be his backup. Chris Trevler, not even a thought in this process from the way the press conference went, the understanding, etc. And is huge news. So this is something I think will, divide a lot of us. People have been asking for Mike White for a while now. And, kind of like I broke down with the Richard Sherman comments, there's been two schools of thoughts with them. The Bengals game and what we've seen from the Colts game were better indicators of what Mike White probably is as a quarterback. The Buffalo Bills game, kind of a condemnation for those that think that he's also no better than Zach Wilson, and that's truly where his talents lie as a turnover machine that checks down a lot. There was an interesting stat that Mike White checks down about 10% of the time. I don't remember fully what it was to give you guys 100% of the context. But in terms of our own quarterback, Zach Wilson lies somewhere around 5.8, I think it was, percent of his passes as a check down. So Michael Carter, James Robinson, Ty Johnson coming out of the backfield, you should see a little bit more of that. Maybe some of those easier reads where we have hitches coming down the middle with Elijah Moore now being in the slot. There's a lot of guys that should feel better about what their production may look like for the short to intermediate range. Keep in mind, one of the biggest problems a lot of people had with Zach Wilson after the game was that he couldn't even complete a pass behind the line of scrimmage. And the biggest damning factor is that we hype up his arm talent all the time, and yet Mac Wilson, Mac Jones had no issue whatsoever here. So that is a huge, huge piece. We'll probably break it down more in our Jets Flight Squad podcast today, especially as after I can dive into things a little bit more. I'm in the works with another special individual that we may have coming onto the show as well. So we'll see how that works out. But irregardless, it's huge news, and I'm not upset. So the school of thought that Robert Saleh had behind this move is that he wants to give Zach Wilson time to kind of reset his fundamentals, rebuild that consistency, that confidence that he has. And Robert Saleh made it pretty clear that the expectation is, assuming Zach Wilson completes this, he wants to try to get him back on the field at some point this season. So it's an interesting comment because if Mike White ends up performing well, I don't see him turning back to Zach Wilson. And I know the media is going to try to eat him up for that, but the locker room will most likely be behind Mike White 100% at that point. Mike White himself would be very confused by the move. Yes, Zach Wilson may still be the future in terms of Robert Saleh and the staff's eyes, but the whole move was made for people that don't quite understand it. They still get pissed that Zach Wilson isn't going to be playing, is getting sat down, whatever. It wasn't that Zach Wilson has had bad performances. Again, 5-2 as a starter since he returned. It is what it is. There's been multiple bad performances, yes, but to me, this spoke more about the team and less of an individual. Again, it was a complete narrative shift. The fact that Zach Wilson's comments did as much damage as it did, as quickly and as short of a time as it did, this was the most effective move that Robert Saleh could have made so that he didn't alienate the entirety of his roster and show that Zach Wilson is more important than anybody else. And there was a portion in the press conference where he mentioned Zach Wilson did end up addressing the team. He didn't get into it any further than that, so we'll see. But there was a lot of comparisons with that to how Josh Allen handled some of his losses. Justin Fields, there's a huge few articles that came out about how he addressed the team after a very poor performance. And so that ended up, making Zach Wilson look even that much more worse as a leader. But that is the huge bomb that got dropped, and I don't think anybody was really surprised, especially if you believed in the earlier sources that he wasn't going to start. There were a few other key things though. So Nate Herbig, he was limited, but Robert Saleh sounded pretty confident that he should be back. Keep in mind he was dealing with the shin issue, and I guess it got bad right before the game, which is why he didn't play. Corey Davis is back, which is a huge plus. That throws a few other questions out there. What is Denzel Mims' playing time going to look like after confirming that he's earned a role? We've seen our only big play happen with Denzel Mims on a very um, an underthrown ball. They say it get caught up in the wind, so maybe it was overthrown and it hung back. But the only big play coming from Denzel Mims, we've been a fan of his run blocking capability, although that didn't mean much in the Patriots game, considering we couldn't really break anything outside. Um, but we'll see how they plan to play him and mix him into the rotation. And then George Fant, he is, I don't know if he's officially off of IR, but they are making him practice. Or I shouldn't say making, but he is practicing, which means his 21-day countdown time for the Jets to confirm that he's back on the active roster starts. So yeah, those are all the essential updates from today. We'll spend some time tonight definitely breaking it down. I know Gunny and Gino are going to have some interesting comments about this as well. So tap into that. I think it should be around 7 tonight, at least Pacific Standard Time. I'll have it posted here in a couple hours or something. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are on the whole situation. How confident are you in Mike White versus this Bears? Last ranked defense in the NFL. I mean, a poor performance would be pretty damning in terms of Mike White's future. But again, let me know what you guys' thoughts are. I'll catch you again. Peace.